Listen, now I know some folk will try and run with this like he's being opportunistic or just flat out taking advantage, but understand that when you hear David Benavidez saying things like he's open to facing Terence "Bud" Crawford for undisputed if Crawford beats Canelo in September, that's simply because his goal is to become undisputed, whether that be at 175 or 168. Look, we can't sit up here and act like Benavidez hasn't damn near been begging for a fight with Canelo, because in every other interview, he's adamant when asked about it, which is what we see in this recent sit-down with the Pound for Pound podcast. Benavidez was not only asked about the possibility of him facing Canelo, but also Terence Crawford, and he lightly replied, "Hell yeah, I'll make 168 for Crawford if he beats Canelo." It wasn't something David suggested or something David proposed. He was simply asked a question, okay? Of course, to the naked eye, the first thing we're all gonna say is, what the fuck? Ain't nobody trying to see big-ass David Benavidez fighting little Bud Crawford. Like, that shit sounds insane. I mean, I personally wouldn't want to see that, for the obvious reason that Benavidez is just too damn big. What's that Chris Tucker said in the movie Rush Hour 3? I don't know what you've been feeding him, but he's too damn big. That's pretty much the situation we have here. As a matter of fact, Benavidez versus Crawford would be what most claim Canelo versus Crawford is. Like, yeah, we know the weight difference more than likely will play a factor, but at least Bud has some type of height over Canelo. Him squaring off against Benavidez would be an entirely different ball game, and that's if he were to beat Canelo anyways, because at the end of the day, Crawford is still the underdog of that bout, whether many believe he's got it in his back pocket or not. However, as crazy as this may sound, boxing needs shit like this so we could get the actual matchups we want to see, like Canelo Alvarez versus David Benavidez. Because for instance, if Bud were to come out right now and say that he'd face a tree as big as David, no matter the size difference, no matter the result, you'd still have fanboys and girls out there who'd be intrigued enough to see two badasses like Benavidez and Bud stepping foot in there against one another. Meaning that if Canelo is more than likely the victor, it breeds more life into a potential Canelo versus Benavidez bout. Not to mention, Crawford versus Benavidez was a possibility once upon a time, in case anyone forgot. There was a time when Turki Al-Sheikh tried to make Benavidez versus Crawford happen at 160, to which Benavidez rightfully turned down. Which also says that if Crawford were to be victorious against Canelo and actually went that route to face the giant that is David Benavidez, which I highly doubt, might I add, no one could really say that Benavidez would be picking on the smaller fighter due to the fact that he's let it be known time and time again that he wants undisputed. Because that's all he's been saying over and over again. He couldn't land a Canelo fight at 168. Bivol decided to run it back with Benavidez at 175, leaving David to pick up the scraps and settle for guys like Caleb Smith and possibly William Skull if there's any truth to that. All in all though, the whole point is, just because David Benavidez says he's open to facing Terence Crawford doesn't necessarily mean that's something he plans on doing. It also doesn't mean Crawford's going to beat Canelo, and it for damn sure doesn't mean that if Crawford's victorious, he'd be willing to face Benavidez. So before everyone decides to take it out of context and have a field day on the Mexican monster, understand he was simply asked a question, and he answered it. Nothing more, nothing less. Pop off.